Welcome back. We move on now from the issue of the herdsmen and the farmers' clash to the courtrooms. There are lots of interesting cases we're tracking at the courts, and we have a recap of a few of them up next.
We begin with the reports that the Federal High Court in Abuja on Thursday dismissed the application by the indigenous people of Biafra seeking to reverse its proscription and designation as a terrorist organization. Delivering his ruling on IPOB's application, the acting Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Abdul Kafarati, held that September the 20th, 2017 proscription order was validly issued. The judge noted that an organization registered abroad could be likened to a foreigner who could be arrested in another country where he was found to have committed a crime. The judge also held that the issuance of the proscription order by him in chambers following an ex parte application was in accordance with the provisions of the Terrorism Prevention Act. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, last Wednesday arraigned Justice Mohammed Yusuf before a Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja. In 2016, the National Judicial Council, NJC, had recommended the retirement of Justice Yusuf, but President Muhammad Buhari is yet to act on this recommendation, and Justice Yusuf has moved to get the NJC to reconsider its decision. He was, however, arraigned alongside Esther Agbo, a staff of a law firm of Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Riki Tafa, on a 5-count charge of financial impropriety. When the charges were read to them, they both pleaded not guilty before the judge, Justice Sherifat Sholebo. In her ruling on their bail applications, Justice Sholebo noted that Justice Yusuf is still a judicial officer. She therefore admitted him to bail on self-recognizance. The judge also directed that he is not to leave the country without a court order. The EFCC was ordered to remit Justice Yusuf's passport to the Chief Registrar of the court within 7 days. Trial has been fixed for the 20th of February. In yet another case, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has rearraigned the former Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Jumoke Akinjide, before a Federal High Court sitting in Lagos. Ms. Akinjide was rearraigned before Justice Muslim Hassan on a 24-count charge on allegations of financial crimes. She had earlier been arraigned alongside 2 others before Justice Joyce Abdul Malik, sitting at the Federal High Court, Ibadan. But the transfer of the case to Lagos paved the way for the rearrangement. In the charge sheet, the EFCC accused the former FCT Minister, a former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Daisy Alison Madueke, who is said to be at large, and 2 others of conspiring to directly take possession of 650 million naira, which they reasonably ought to have known forms part of proceeds of an unlawful act. The other 2 named in the charge are Senator Ayo Adeseun and a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Chief Olanrewaju Otiti. The defendants all pleaded not guilty to the charge. Justice Muslim Hassan granted their request for bail and adjourned their trial to the 5th of February. Still at the Federal High Court, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has tendered in evidence 2 deeds of conveyance of landed property belonging to a former Administrative Secretary of INEC in Kwara State, Mr. Christian Nwosu. The EFCC tendered the documents through its investigator, Usman Zakari, who testified that Mr. Nwosu brought the documents to the commission. The witness also testified that he found that a sum of 30 million naira was paid to Mr. Nwosu after the 2015 presidential elections. Mr. Christian Nwosu is standing trial for allegedly conspiring with 2 other INEC officials to take a bribe of 264.8 million naira from a former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Daisy Alison Madueke, to compromise the elections. The court has fixed the 7th of February for further hearing. And we round off with a report that another judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Mojisola Olatoregun, has dismissed the claim of Union Bank PLC to Flat 7B Osman Towers, Ikoyi, Lagos. It's the property linked to the dismissed Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, NIA, Ambassador Ayoke, where the EFCC recovered some large sums of money on the 12th of April 2017. The court described the bank as a busybody and ordered the permanent forfeiture of the property to the federal government. In a ruling delivered last Friday, Justice Olatoregun said she found from the papers filed before the court that the bank had no legal reason to lodge any complaints on the steps being taken by the EFCC on the property, having divested its interests by outright sale of the property to Chobe Ventures. The court was also convinced that the property had been acquired by the proceeds of unlawful activities of Mr. and Mrs. Ayodeluke in the name of Chobe Ventures. In the final analysis, the court held that the funds belong to the federal government of Nigeria.